Watch how Supreme went from being a small skate shop to becoming a global brand valued at over $1 billion. They don't just sell clothes, they sell attitude, from their red logo to their limited drops that cause global queues. They made their mark on the industry by turning scarcity and irreverence into their weapons. Their unlikely collaborations, their ironic campaigns, their obsessed community. Supreme is first and foremost a cultural symbol, then a garment. It's not about dressing up, it's about belonging to a tribe. The conclusion, don't be for everyone, be for someone.
Hello everyone, in this After Effects masterclass, I'll show you step-by-step how to animate and design a complete reel like this one. These kinds of motion graphic skills are in high demand these days. So if you want to improve as a motion designer and add professional material to your portfolio that will attract new clients, this class is for you. This project we're going to do today is inspired by the fantastic designs of Stellar Media, but in my own style. By the way, if you want to support the channel, in addition to your likes, you can also do it from my Patreon page. There, I share with you all the projects I use in the tutorials, so you can keep practicing and learning. I leave the link in the description if you want to take a look. As always, the first thing we're going to do is import the files. Since this is a very long tutorial, I'm going to try to go slowly and clearly so that everyone can follow the steps without any problems. By the way, if you like documentary-style editing, my course is now available. But it's not just a course in which I show you how to animate a sequence in After Effects and that's it, but I show you the entire procedure that I followed to create this animation. From the initial idea to the final render, going through each and every phase of the creative process. I'll leave the link in the description in case you want to take a look. Okay, import everything except this folder of photos, which we'll do later. And I'm going to save this in a folder called Assets. Again, File, Import. And now I'm going to bring these in, which will serve as a guide for putting all the scenes together. But then everyone can design each scene to their liking. This folder will be called Scenes, and another one for the compositions. With it selected, we're going to create the first one, which will be called Reel, 1080 by 1920 at 30 frames per second. And we're going to set the duration to about 50 seconds. With a right click, we're going to create a solid that will serve as the background with an almost completely white color. If we want this layer, we'll lock it. And now, based on these images, we're going to design the scene. You can also activate the safety margins or the grid to use as a reference so that nothing is placed randomly, but everything is nicely squared up. I'm also going to lower the opacity a little bit. And now I can start creating each element. I'm going to select the ellipse tool and create a circle like this, about this big, and with Control Home, we center it there in view. And this one is going to be called Circle. You can see that with our guide layer, it's going to be super easy to design all the scenes. With Control D, we duplicate it, and this one is going to be called Stroke. We remove the fill and give it a stroke. Now, in the stroke content, we can click on this plus icon to create this dashed line. With the text tool, I'm going to write Supreme. We center the anchor point and also center it in view. I'm going to paint this text white. More or less like that. But we have to adjust the kerning a little bit for this word, because these two letters are very close together and there's a lot of separation here. We double-click, place the cursor between these two letters, and with the Alt key and the arrow keys on the keyboard, we can move it a little to the right. This one too, just a little. And this one too. And this one we do the opposite. We're going to bring it a little closer. Okay, perfect. We're going to link this text to the circle, because later on, we're going to animate it in rotation. We're also going to create these texts. Here I am going to write, "Watch how." Then, when we have the whole reel animated, we'll give all the text the same color, so that everything together has visual consistency. For this font, I'm going to use the one called Riccione Serial Regular Italic. You can also activate the proportional grid to use as a reference, so that no element is out of place. That should do it. Another text. Here I'm going to write Supreme. By the way, I have the text layers justified in the center. If you don't see the paragraph options, go to Window, Paragraph. I'm going to choose the San Francisco font in its bold variant. With Control-Alt and the Home key, we center the anchor point, and with Control-Home, we center it in View. Now we're going to move it up a little bit. Scale it about there. Perfect. We select both and duplicate them with Control-D. We move them down. In this one, I'm going to write Skate Shop. And here went from being a small with Control-R, we can bring up the rulers. And now we're going to put one here, on the left side of the text. As you can see, it doesn't have to be exactly the same as our reference layer. It's just to serve as a guide. Let's continue adding elements. Now let's bring in the bills that are seen at the top and bottom. We have them here in Assets. This one is called Bill. We scale it a little and adjust it around there. Perfect. With Control-D, we duplicate it and place it above. If we press the W key, we can rotate the layer. You can see that with the reference layer, it is very easy to design the scene, but if not, you have to take your time until all the elements are well positioned and nothing is out of place. Maybe I'll move these two a little further up. That's perfect. We can now deactivate this reference layer if we want. What we need to do now is create the text animations and synchronize them with the audio. I'm going to put this audio layer up here.
Watch how Supreme went from being a small... Watch how Supreme...
Let's animate these two first. Here I'm going to animate the opacity and also add the blur property. I'll set the blur to 6 points. The opacity to 0. We'll expand range selector and set the offset to -100. We'll mark a keyframe and place it at the beginning of the timeline.
Watch how Supreme...
This animation is very fast.
Watch how Supreme...
Roughly up to frame number 15. Here we set the offset to 100. We expand Advanced and change from Square to Ramp Up. And look how cool the animation looks. If we want, instead of revealing it letter by letter, we can make it appear word by word.
Watch how Supreme went... Watch how Supreme...
Okay, I think it looks perfect there. We're also going to make a small animation for this Supreme one. In the range selector position, we're going to set, for example, 50 on the y-axis. We set the opacity to 0. We expand it and set the offset to -100. A little further on, we set it back to 100, and in an advanced, we change it to ramp.
Watch how Supreme went from being a small...
It doesn't look right now because we have to adjust some settings.
Watch how Supreme went from...
Anyway, this animation is very slow, so I'm going to set the ease high to 20 and increase the ease low to 100.
Watch how Supreme went from being a small scale...
Look how good it looks.
Watch how Supreme went from being a small...
We have to adjust the timing.
Watch how...
We'll put that keyframe more or less here.
How Supreme went from... Watch how Supreme went...
Okay, and this one around here,
Watch how Supreme went from...
very fast.
Watch how Supreme went from being a small...
I like it there.
Watch how Supreme went from being a... Watch how... Watch how Supreme went from being a... Watch how Supreme went from...
Perfect. We'll copy this animator with Control-C and paste it into this phrase with Control-V.
Supreme went from...
With the U key, we'll show the keyframes.
From being a small...
If we don't want it to come from below, we can make some adjustments here. Where we put 50, we'll put 0. And in the X position, if we increase the value, the words will come from the right. I'm not going to put that much. I'll just put 50.
Supreme went from being a small... Supreme went from being a small... How Supreme went... How Supreme went from being a small... Went from being...
And if we want, we can change from characters to words.
Supreme went from being a small skate shop. Supreme went from being a small...
It looks great. We select Skate Shop, and with Control-V, we paste the animator there too.
Watch how Supreme went from being a small skate shop to becoming a...
That's perfect.
Watch how Supreme went from being a small skate shop to become... Watch how Supreme went from being a small skate shop to... Went from being a small skate shop to...
We go to the second 3, more or less, and select the bills. key P, we mark a keyframe in the position. And a little before, around here more or less, although later we'll adjust the timing. Around here, we move them like this. That one over there, and this one over here. We select the keyframes, smooth them with F9, and we're going to give the curve this shape. It should start very fast and end very slowly.
Being a small skate shop to becoming Supreme went from being a small skate shop.
We're also going to do a little animation on the circle. We expand the opacity and rotation and mark a keyframe on both. We move forward a little and set 2 more. Here, for example, we set it to -90 and the opacity to 0. And for the position, we're also going to give the curve this shape so that it starts very fast and ends very slowly.
How Supreme went from being. Watch how Supreme went.
We expand the text opacity and parent it to the circle. With the pick whip, we link the opacity of the text to that of the circle.
How Supreme went from being a. How Supreme went from being. Watch how Supreme went from.
We are also going to animate the stroke. We add the trim path. We set the end to 0. And a little further on, we set it to 100. In the offset, we mark a keyframe, and further on, we set it to, for example, 180. We smooth it with F9 and give the curve this shape, somewhere between 60 and 70.
Supreme went from being a small.
Now it's going very fast, but we have to adjust the timing.
Watch how Supreme went from being a small skate shop to become. Went from being a small skate shop. Watch how Supreme went from being a small skate shop to becoming a. Watch how Supreme went from being a small skate shop.
I like it around there. With a right click, we create a 50mm camera and a node. It tells us that we must convert the layers to 3D. So we select all except the background and activate the cube icon. If it doesn't appear, press F4 to display it. Right-click, New Null Object. We convert it to 3D and parent the camera to the null. We are at the beginning of the timeline. We mark a keyframe. And here, we are going to set a value of 800. Little further on, at 315, we leave it at 0 as it was. Select the keyframes, smooth with F9, and shape the curve. Start very fast and end very slowly.
Watch how Supreme went from being a small skate shop to become. Watch how Supreme went from being a small skate shop to becoming a global brand valued at.
And now we have the
Watch how
first scene
Supreme went
animated.
from being a small.
Note, we are going to place the text that says Supreme below the circle. Although it doesn't matter, because with the opacity animation, you can still see it behind.
Watch how Supreme went from being a small. Watch how Supreme went from being a small. Watch how Supreme went from being a small skate shop. Watch how Supreme went from being a small skate. Watch how Supreme went from being a...
We are going to paint all these layers of the first scene the same color. Now we duplicate the null with Ctrl D to make another movement. Press the U key, delete these keyframes, and parent the previous null to the new one. This animation will start a little earlier. We go to 210 and set a keyframe right there. At 226, we move the whole scene down. We set a value of 600 and smooth these keyframes with F9. We set the influence of this handle to 100%, and we also move it all the way to the right to give it a lot of force, which is exactly where we will make the cut transition.
Shop to becoming a globe shop to becoming a globe to becoming a globe shop to becoming a...
We move a little further forward, and at 620 we continue moving down. Now we set a value of 400. We move this keyframe all the way to the left and do the same to give the transition maximum strength.
Skate shop to becoming a global brand valued at skate shop to becoming a global skate shop to becoming a global brand.
Perfect. Right here at this point, we are going to cut all the layers, Control-Shift, and the D key. Or you can also go to Edit, Split Layer, and delete all of them. Being at the last keyframe, we begin to design the next scene. We lower the opacity of the reference layer, around there. And we place all the elements. First, this one is called a stack of money. This layer belongs to the next scene, so we change its color. It's very easy to design the scene with our reference layer. I'm also going to add this one called Grid in green. With the rounded rectangle tool, we're going to make a mask like this. We set the feather to 200, and we set this layer to multiply mode. If the blending modes don't appear, we can display them with F4. And instead of having to redo all the text animations, what we're going to do is duplicate them. For example, these two, with Ctrl D, we duplicate them and put them here with the green color group. But for these two, for now, we're going to disable the 3D. Look here where we have them. Now, listening to the audio, we're going to adjust the timing.
Skate shop to becoming a global brand. To becoming a global.
I'm going to put this one up here. Here I'm going to write to become a global.
Brand valued at O. Skate shop to becoming a global brand.
It has to start much earlier.
to becoming a global brand value, to becoming a global.
With the Alt key pressed and the mouse scroll wheel, we can zoom in. And right here, where we will make the transition cut, this text animation will begin. But instead of moving the keyframes, what I'm going to do is move the layer.
To becoming a global brand, to becoming a global brand, to becoming a global brand.
Perfect.
To becoming a global brand valued.
I'm going to put this text over there and write brand here. I'm also going to make it a little bigger. To center it properly, press Control Home and now move it up.
Skate shop to becoming a global brand value, to becoming a global brand, becoming a global brand valued at, becoming a global brand valued, to becoming a global brand valued.
I like it there. With Control D, we duplicate this text. And we're going to put it down here. Here, I'm going to write valued at over A. We can activate the grid to position the text correctly. That one over there and this one that says brand. I'll duplicate it too with Control D. Here I'm going to write $1 million. I'm going to make this text a little smaller. We can press Control Home to center it or put it here at 540. There it is. I think that's perfect. Now we just have to adjust the timing to synchronize it with the audio.
To becoming,
I'm going to deactivate this layer.
to becoming a global brand valued at, global brand value. To becoming a global brand valued at brand value valued at over $1 billion and valued at over $1 billion. Global brand valued at over $1 billion.
With the U key, we display the keyframes.
And valued at over $1 billion. Valued at over $1 billion.
If you don't want the animation to repeat as it is, so that the letters don't come from below, we can do something else. Let's go here to the animator's options. In the position where we put 50, we're going to put 0. Now, we want these words to come from the right or the left, whichever you prefer. So here, I'm going to put, for example, 50. I'm also going to change from letters to words.
Valued at over $1 billion. And valued at over $1 billion. Valued at over $1 billion.
Perfect. It looks
at
great
over
there.
$1 billion. Becoming a global brand valued.
I don't know if there's anything else we need to do in this scene. Let's see. Okay, yes. this path that you can see here behind. To do this, we're going to select the pen tool and make a shape like this. It's very simple. Here, we're going to increase the thickness quite a bit, more or less like this. We'll put it below the grid and change the color to green. In the stroke options, where it says taper, we're going to increase this value. And we're going to lower the opacity quite a bit, for example, to 10. This is going to be called stroke. We have now designed the second scene, but note that it is not currently reacting to the camera. Before converting the layers to 3D, we are going to place ourselves right here on this keyframe, which is where we are going to make the cut. We will place these two here, and we are also going to cut all of these at that point. Now we will place ourselves here on the last keyframe. Pay attention to this step because it is very important. We select all the green ones and right-click to create a null object. We select all of them again, including the null object, and convert them to 3D. Now we select the green layers, and with the pick whip, we parent them to the null. Being here at the last keyframe, we press Ctrl Home to leave everything as it was. If this shortcut doesn't work for you, you can go to Layer, Transform, Center in View. We can now delete this null if we want to.
To becoming a global brand valued at over $1 billion.
Let's preview to see how it looks.
Watch how Supreme went from being a small skate shop to becoming a global brand valued at over $1 billion.
I think it looks perfect. With Ctrl D, we duplicate the null, press the U key, and delete these keyframes. We parent the previous null to the new one. We go here at 610, and right there, we mark a keyframe in the position. Let's move forward to 810. Here, we're going to zoom in and set Z to a value of -800. We select the keyframes, smooth them out, and give the curve this shape so that it starts very fast and gradually loses speed.
Dollars. They don't just sell dollars. They don't just sell clothes, they sell $1 billion. They don't just.
Okay, just like we did before. Now, let's design the third scene. I'm going to bring this character layer and put it up here. Since it belongs to the next scene, I'm going to change its color. See how easy it is to design the scene with our reference layer. With the ellipse tool, we're going to make a circle like this. We'll set the stroke to 0. Well, not 0. We'll set it to 5 or 6 pixels. And with Ctrl Home, we'll center it nicely. This one will be called Stroke. And we'll give it the same color. With Ctrl D, we duplicate this layer, and the copy will be called Circle Matte. We remove the stroke from this one and give it a fill. The color doesn't matter, because we're going to use it to make the matte alpha character of this shape. We select the layer, and with the pick whip, we make it matte alpha of this circle. We display the options, and with a right click on ellipse path, we convert it to Bezier. Now you can't see it because we have the reference layer activated. But if I deactivate it, you can see that the character is cut off. So we select the circle matte path and move this point up to reveal the entire character figure. And we put the stroke below. That's it. Perfect. We select these two texts and duplicate them with Control D. We place them here with the yellow group and disable the 3D for now. We will position them according to our reference layer. Here I am going to write close. A little bigger. Perfect. Well, this wasn't the one I wanted to duplicate, so I delete it. And I'm going to duplicate this one that says valued at over A. I put it up here and change the color. We deactivate 3D, and with the Control Home, we center it in view. Here I'm going to write, they don't just sell. We can deactivate this layer. Now, let's listen to the audio to adjust the timing of the texts. Before, right here at this point, which is where we are going to make the cut transition, we are going to select the green layers. And with Control-Shift+D, we are going to cut them right here at this part. And these yellow ones too.
$1 billion. They don't just sell $1 billion. They don't just sell. They don't just sell $1 billion. They don't just sell clothes. $1 billion. They don't just sell clothes. They don't just sell clothes. They don't just sell clothes.
I'm going to change the animation for the word clothes. Here, I'm going to set it to 0. And on the y-axis, I'm going to set it to 50 again, so that the animation comes from below. In Advanced, I'm going to change from words to characters again.
They don't just sell clothes, they sell They don't just sell clothes, they sell They don't just sell clothes. Dollars. They don't just sell clothes, they sell Just sell clothes,
We select all the yellow layers. And while here in the last keyframe, we right-click to create a null object, we select all of them, including the null. This step is very important, as I said before, but I'll repeat it. So that they react well to the camera movement, we select all of them and convert them to 3D. And now we parent the yellow ones to the null. We select it and go to Layer, Transform, Center in View. This means that we have them right in front of the camera viewfinder. Without moving from here, we delete the null.
Valued at over $1 billion. They don't just sell clothes. They don't just sell clothes. They don't just sell.
For this transition, we are going to use some footage we have here called Money Rain. We place ourselves right at the cut and move the footage. First, we rotate it 90 degrees and scale it down a little. As I was saying, we're going to move the layer little by little until a bill appears that takes up almost the entire composition. I think it's this part here. Right there, we set a keyframe on the scale and another on the position. We put these two at the beginning of the footage. When the bills start to appear,
Brand valued at over $1 billion.
in this part of the transition, we scale it up a little so that it takes up as much space as possible, and the layers behind it are not visible. A little bigger. Around there. Even if you can see a little bit around the corners, it's okay. Let's preview it to see how it looks.
Watch how Supreme went from being a small skate shop to becoming a global brand valued at over $1 billion. They don't just sell clothes, they sell
Well, this looks special. With Control A, we select all the layers. Pressing the U key expands the keyframes of this null. Let's go to the last one, and with Control D, duplicate it. Press U again and delete these. We parent the previous null to the new one. This animation will start a little before this one ends. Let's go here to 7:15, and right there we'll mark a keyframe at the position of this null. Above this, at 8:10, we'll move the camera to the right. Here, the elements are moving to the left, but what we're actually doing is moving the camera to the right. Look, this viewfinder here is set to top view, and if I move it here on the x-axis, we can see more clearly how the camera is moving. Here, I'm going to set a value of 1000. Now I'm going to advance to 921, and I'm going to continue moving the camera to the right. I'm going to set the x-axis to 1300. We select them all and smooth them with F9. To give maximum strength to this point, where the transition will be, we'll give the curve the same shape. We set the influence of this handle to 100%, and the same for this one. We move this one all the way to the left, and this one all the way to the right.
Clothes, they sell attitude. From clothes, they sell attitude.
Perfect. While we're here, we'll select all the yellow layers. Then we go to Edit, Split Layer, or Control-Shift+D. And we delete them.
They don't just sell clothes, they sell attitude. They sell clothes, they sell attitude.
Now, at the last keyframe, we'll start designing the next scene, which I think is the fourth scene. Look, if we press the backslash key, we can see the complete timeline of our animation. And if we want to better organize the layers, for example, I'm going to put the camera below the nulls. To exit full screen, we press the backslash key again. I'm going to lower the opacity of this reference layer a little. That should do. Now, from the Assets folder, I'm going to bring in this one called American Coin. And since this already belongs to the next scene, I'm also going to change its color. And obviously, this layer in the next scene has to start right at the cut transition. So we're going to cut it there. You can see how easy and convenient it is to design this scene with our guide layer. As I said before, it doesn't have to be exactly the same. Something like this will do. With Control D, we duplicate it, and we're going to put this copy down here. We make it a little bigger and position it. Let's continue. Now, I'm going to bring in this one called Grid. I'm going to put it below the coins. I'm also going to scale it a little. And now, with the rounded rectangle tool, I'm going to make a mask like this. If we hold down the Control and Shift keys, we can make a perfect square. But if we release the Shift key, we can make the rectangle any shape we want. I'm going to leave it more or less around here. Now, I'm going to set the feathering to 200. And we need to set this layer to multiply mode. We're also going to paint it green. And we need to cut it right at that point. More things. With the pen tool, I'm going to make these paths now, which is super easy. We remove the fill and add a stroke with a thickness of 6 pixels. The color's green. We cut it at this point and place it here with the others in this group. This one is the same color. We cut it there, and we put them all together. Well, I might put this one with the paths below the grid, so the coin is visible above it. Now, to create the text, I'm going to duplicate these two, the ones from the previous scene. I select them and press Control D to duplicate them. I put them up here and change their color. As we did before, we have to turn off the 3D icon. We adjust the layers properly, over there, and we're going to extend them a little more. Now, all we have to do with these two text layers is adjust the timing to match our audio. Let's listen.
They sell attitudes. They sell
I'm going to turn off this reference layer for now.
clothes. They sell attitude. They sell attitude.
Before adjusting the timing, we need to change the text, so I'm going to reactivate the layer. In this one, I'm going to write they sell. And in this one, attitude. Notice that when we change the word, the anchor point moved a little. So with Control-Alt and the Home key, we center it again. And with Control-Home, we center the text in view. We make it a little bigger, and that's it. We're going to do the same with this one. Notice where the anchor point is? When we changed the words, it moved a little. Control-Alt and the Home key to center it, and again, Control-Home to center it in view. Although this isn't necessary, because we're going to move it here to the left. More or less around there. Okay, let's listen to the audio to adjust the timing.
They sell attitude. From their clothes, they sell attitude.
This needs to be much faster.
They sell attitude. They sell attitude.
This one too. It needs to start much earlier.
They sell attitude. From their they sell attitude. From their they sell attitude.
I quite like it so far.
They sell attitude. From their red.
To make this whole scene react to camera movement, we need to convert it to 3D, but we'll do it the same way as before. Select all the green layers, right-click, New, Null Object. Select them all again, including the null object. Now, at the last keyframe, we convert them to 3D. We deselect the null object, and we parent all the layers in this scene to it. Now, with Control-Home, center everything in view, or you can also go to Layer Transform, Center in View, and they'll be right in front of the camera viewfinder. I'm going to press Ctrl-Z so you can see where the layers were when we converted them to 3D. They move to the composition's origin point. Then, when you press Control-Home, they'll be right in front of the camera viewfinder. Although this one here, the one with this coin, I'm going to move it a little closer to the camera to create the parallax effect a little smaller. I like it that way.
They sell attitude. From their red clothes, they sell attitude. From sell clothes, they sell attitude. From their they sell attitude.
Maybe I'll adjust the timing a bit more, because this one here seems to be going too fast.
They sell attitude. They sell attitude.
And this one needs to start a tad later.
They sell attitude. From their red they sell attitude. From their sell attitude. From their
We go back here to the last keyframe. With Ctrl-D, we duplicate the null. Press U, and we delete this. Another thing, this null that we used to center all these layers if we want, we can delete it. This is the copy we just made, so we have to parent the previous null to the new one. And this animation is going to start a little earlier. We're going to go here to 820, and right there we mark a keyframe at the position of this null. We advance now to 920. And here we're going to zoom in on the Z-axis. We set it to a value of -150. We continue moving forward. We go to the 14-second mark. And by the way, these two layers need to be extended a little more. Although since the transition will be here, they won't be visible. Here at the 14-second mark, we'll continue zooming in. Now we set it to -1540. We smooth all these keyframes with F9. We have to give the curve the same shape as before. so that the strongest part of the animation falls on this point, which is where the cut transition will be. We set the influence to 100% for this one. We move this handle all the way to the left, this one to the right, and this one too. Influence to 100%.
From their red logo to their limited.
Right here, at 920, we can now select these layers and cut them at this point. We go to Edit, Split Layer. Being on the last keyframe, we're going to design the next scene, which I think is Scene 5. We lower the opacity a little. And now we're going to create the elements. For this circle, I could duplicate the one we made at the beginning, but I'm going to make a new one. With the Control and Shift keys pressed, we make a perfect circle. We remove the fill and set the stroke to a thickness of 6 pixels. Pressing Control plus Home, we center it in the viewport. We're going to rename it. And here in the ellipse options, under stroke, we're going to click this plus icon to create this dashed line. Perfect. We're going to place this layer here. And of course, we have to cut it right here at this point. We place the clipping head and cut it there. Let's continue. Now we're going to create the flowers. Right-click, New, Shape Layer. This one will be called Flower. We add a polystar and also a fill. For now, I'm going to make the color almost black, a fairly dark gray. Now, in the polystar options, we're going to play around with these values. I'm going to leave this as it is, at 50. Here, I'm going to increase the outer radius quite a bit, for example, to 600. I'll set the inner roundness to 200. And I'm going to increase the outer roundness quite a bit, maybe to 100%, or even less, 75. And I'll leave this value at 150. I like it like that. Now, we're going to put this star here, in this upper left corner. If we hold down the Control key, it adjusts automatically. With Control D, we duplicate it, and we're going to put this copy down here. We press the Control key and it adjusts precisely. We put these 2 layers here with their group and cut them right at that point.
From their red logo.
Now, I'm going to bring in this layer called Clothes. I put it here on top, change its color, and scale it a little. It looks good like that. Now, we have to create the text. Just like we did before, let's duplicate these 2. Press Control D, bring them up here, change their color, and turn off the 3D effect. It's important that they're precisely aligned with the exact point where the transition will occur. because otherwise, a stray frame might appear, potentially ruining the animation. Here, I'm going to write red logo. Press Ctrl-Alt and the Home key to center the anchor point, and Control-Home to center the text in view. We'll place it roughly here. If we hold down the Shift key, we can position it perfectly vertically. I'll make it a little smaller. That's good. The color's red, although as I mentioned at the beginning, we'll make further color and other adjustments when we finish the animation.
From their red logo to their limited drop.
Here I'm going to write from there. We center the anchor point and center it in view. And now, with Shift pressed, we position it here, over our reference layer. Now we need to adjust the timing.
From their red logo.
For now, I'll deactivate this one.
From their red logo to their from their red logo.
This animation needs to be a little faster.
From their red from their red logo to their from their red logo.
Press the U key and move the keyframes to the left.
From their red logo to their limited. From their red logo to
faster.
From their red logo to their red logo to their limit. Their red logo to their limit. From their red logo to their limit. From their red logo to their.
I like it that way. If you want, instead of the letters coming from down here, as I explained at the beginning, you can go to the animator and set the position, which is at 50 to 0. On the x-axis, you can enter any value you want, and the letters or words will come from this side.
Red logo to their limit. Red logo to their limit.
But I like it as it was, so I'll set it to 0, and on the y-axis, 50.
From their red logo to their limit.
Perfect.
From their red logo to
We still need to create these two texts here. We select them and duplicate them with Ctrl-D. Let's start with this one. Here I'm going to write, "to their limited drops that cause." As you can see, when the phrase changed, the anchor point moved, so with Ctrl-Alt and the Home key, we center it again, and with Control-Home, we center it in the viewport. A little smaller. Around there. Here I'm going to write global cues. We center the anchor point and also center it in the viewport. Now we adjust it with our reference layer. All that's left is to adjust the timing. I'm going to deactivate this layer to see it better.
From their red logo to their limit. Logo to their limited drops that cause global. Logo to their limited. Their red logo to go to their limited drops that cause global drops that cause global cues. Drops that cause global cues. Limited drops that cause global limited drops that cause global cues. Limited drops that cause global cues. That cause global.
I think it looks perfect. Now we need to convert the layers in this scene to 3D so they react to camera movement. So we select them all, and with a right click, we create a null object. We select all of them, including the null object, and convert them to 3D. Now we deselect the null object and parent all these layers to it. With Control Home, we center everything in view. It looks exactly as we designed it with the guide layer.
Attitude, from their red logo to their limited drops that cause global cues. From their red logo to their from their red logo to their from their red logo to from their red logo to their limited drops that cause global cues. From their red logo to their limited drops that cause global cues.
I think it looks great. We select all the layers with Ctrl+A and press the / key to see the timeline organization. We can now delete the reference layers. And this null that we have used to center all the layers of the scene, we can also remove it. We press the / key to exit full screen. Before continuing, let's preview everything to see how it's going.
Watch how Supreme went from being a small skate shop to becoming a global brand valued at over $1 billion. They don't just sell clothes, they sell attitude, from their red logo to their limited drops that cause global cues.
We can use several tools to create these kinds of lip sync animations. I'm going to use Infinite Talk, and right now, they let you generate a short trial video with 5 free credits. With these 5 credits, your video resolution has to be 480 pixels, since higher quality means more credits. Here, we can upload any image we want. Here, we can upload audio. And in this window, we can write a very short and basic prompt. Each second of video at 480 pixels costs 1 credit. At 720 pixels, 2 credits per second, and in full HD, 3 credits per second. So that's all we can do with the trial version. If you want more credits and high-resolution videos, you'll have to buy them. This first one gives you 90 credits, lets you create full HD videos with lip sync. The process is the same. Upload the image. We uploaded the audio. We wrote a short prompt and selected the highest quality. We clicked Generate Video and waited a few minutes. This is the result.
The conclusion, don't be for everyone, be for someone.
It looks great
Conclusion,
and will
don't
be perfect
everyone,
for our
be
reel.
for someone.
All that's left is to download it, and we're done. Okay, let's continue. To make our timeline much cleaner, we can hide all these layers if we want. Not the audio layer, but all the others. We activate the shy icon, and here too, And that's how we have a much cleaner timeline. Remember, we haven't deleted them, they're just hidden. We expand the keyframes of this null, go to the last one, and with Ctrl-D, we duplicate it, and then delete these. We link the previous null to the new one, and this animation will start here at 1305. Right there, we mark a keyframe in the position, and on this, we're going to move the camera down until the star is more or less positioned at this upper right corner. Here, we're going to set 2330 on the y-axis. We smooth the keyframes, and on this handle, we set the influence to 80%.
They made their mark on
From this animation we've created of Albert Einstein speaking, we're going to create a new composition and save it in its folder. We go into the settings and activate the option to expand by 200 pixels in both width and height. We'll place this image called Black Frame on top of it. To avoid these empty spaces, we can slightly adjust the scale on the y-axis. A small adjustment won't distort the image too much. Perfect. We return to the main composition and bring in scene 6. We'll place the next scene on top of this image. We position Albert's composition here, change its color, since it belongs to another scene, and adjust the scale to 70%. We move it slightly upwards, roughly around this point. With the text tool, we create a shape like this, and everyone can write their text here. We center the anchor point, and with Ctrl plus Home, we center it in the viewport. Now we position it with our reference layer. Since Albert's composition has audio, we need to synchronize it with the main audio. We select both layers and press the L key twice to display the audio waveforms. We move the composition to the right until the waves align with the original audio. I think it's in this section. Let's check.
They made their mark on the industry by turning scarcity. They made their mark on the industry by turning scarcity and irreverence into their weapons.
Perfect. We mute the audio in this composition so only the original is heard. Now, we're going to animate the text to synchronize it with the audio. We expand the menu and add the opacity property. We set it to 0 and select a keyframe in the Start menu. And a little later, we set it to 100. In Advanced, we switch from characters to words. And now we just need to adjust the timing. We deactivate the reference layer.
Global cues. They made their mark on the They made their mark on the industry by turning scarcity and irreverence into their weapons. They made their mark on the industry by turning scarcity and irreverence into their weapons. Their mark on the industry by turning scarcity and irreverence. They made their mark on the industry by turning scarcity and irreverence into their weapons. Made their mark on the industry by turning scarcity and irreverence into their weapons.
Done, it's perfect there. We place the text layer with its yellow color group. We duplicate the star we have up here with Ctrl-D, disable its 3D effect, paint it yellow as well, and place it with this group. With the Control key pressed, we snap it to this vertex. Perfect. In this scene, we still need to create the stroke that appears behind the image. So, without any layers selected, we use the pen tool and draw a shape like this. We lower the stroke, for example, to 300. We rename the layer, go to the stroke options, and where it says taper, we increase the start length significantly to 100%. We place it below, change its color, and lower the opacity considerably. For example, to 20%. We cut all these yellow layers right here, where the camera movement begins. So we select them and cut them there. We delete these three.
Limited drops that cause global cues. They made their mark on the industry by turning scarcity and
While here at the last keyframe, we create a null object above this layer. Right-click, New, Null Object. We convert these to 3D, and we parent the yellow ones to the null object. Pressing Ctrl-Home, we center everything in view again. And we can delete the null object if we want, as well as the reference layer.
drops that cause global cues. They made their mark on drops that cause global cues. They made their mark on the industry by turning scarcity and irreverence global cues. They made their mark on global cues. They made their mark on the industry by turning scarcity and irreverence into their weapons. They made their mark on the industry by turning.
To prevent the animation from looking so static in this part, we're going to create a small animation at the scale of this composition. We press S, select a keyframe, and place it directly below this other one. We advance to the 21-second mark and set the scale to 90%. The thing is, we have to parent the text layer and the stroke layer to the pick whip. to Albert's composition.
They made their mark on the industry
by turning scarcity and irreverence into
their weapons.
Perfect. Okay, let's continue. The next animation will start here, at 1815. So, we mark a keyframe on this null. There's no need to duplicate it. We can do the animation on this one. A little later, at 1918, we move the camera to the right until the star is in the upper left corner. We set a value of 2,370 on the x-axis. We smooth the keyframes, right-click, keyframe velocity, and set the influence to 75% for the handles.
They're unlikely collaborations. They're unlikely. They're unlikely. They're unlikely collaboration. They're unlikely.
Starting with the layer called Mobile, we're going to create another composition, right-click, and create a shape layer called Matte. We add a rectangle and a fill. We deactivate this chain so we can adjust the values separately. It should cover the entire surface of the phone. And this shape should fit snugly against the edges. Here we'll set it to 720. And on this axis, we'll also increase the value to 1,545. And I'll also increase the roundness a bit. That's perfect. In this composition, everyone can add any video they want to see inside the phone. We bring in the file, place it below the phone, and I'll make it a matte alpha of this shape. If you don't see the track matte options, press F4 to expand them. Now, using the pickweep tool, we make it a matte alpha of the shape. If necessary, we adjust the scale, and that's it. I'll leave it like this for this tutorial. We bring in scene 7, and place the phone composition in its folder. While we're at it, we place it above the guide layer, change its color, and position it here. We expand the scale and set it to 70%. In this scene, we'll also add some text. We'll use the San Francisco Pro Bold font. We center the anchor point, and we also center it in the viewport. I'm placing this text layer over the reference image, making it a little bigger. I've included an example text here, but each person needs to write their own text that matches their audio. We select the animator for the text layer, copy it with Ctrl-C, and paste it into the new text with Ctrl-V. We expand the keyframes with the U key.
The collaborations, they're ironic.
Just like we've been doing, we need to synchronize the text with our audio.
They're unlikely collaborations.
We remove the audio just in case.
They're unlikely collaborations. They're unlikely collaborations.
We cut the text layer here. I go to Edit, Split Layer, and I'm going to delete this part, and with Control D, I'm going to duplicate it.
They're unlikely collaborations. They're ironic campaigns. They're
Again with Control D, and I'm going to put this copy here.
likely collaborations. They're ironic campaigns. They're obsessed community.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to put these 3 layers here in the green group.
They're unlikely collaborations. They're ironic.
I'm going to duplicate the flower layer and disable the 3D icon. With the Control key pressed, I'm going to snap it to this vertex. We adjust the scale a little. And I have to put it in the green group.
Unlikely collaborations. They're ironic campaigns. They're obsessed community.
We're going to make this group of green layers start below this keyframe. And now, while on this last one, we're going to right-click and create another null object. We select all the layers, convert them to 3D, and parent the green layers to the null parent. Well, this one from the mobile too, which I haven't selected, but we also have to convert it to 3D and parent it to the null. We center all the layers here in the viewport, and we can delete the null parent if we want.
They're unlikely collaborations. By turning scarcity and irreverence into their weapons. They're unlikely collaborations. They're ironic campaigns. They're obsessed community.
To prevent the animation from looking static, just like we did with the Albert composition, we'll animate the scale of this mobile composition as well. We parent the text layer to this composition. And for the stroke layer, below the keyframes, we cut it with Ctrl-Shift+D. Instead of parenting the Albert composition, we parent it to the mobile composition. Without moving from here, we mark a keyframe on the scale. A little later, at 26 seconds, we set the scale to 90%. We leave these keyframes linear.
They're unlikely collaborations. They're ironic campaigns. They're obsessed community. Supreme is first
And although the camera no longer moves here, the animation of the scale adds more dynamism to the scene.
They're unlikely collaborations. They're ironic campaigns. They're obsessed community. Supreme is first and foremost a
Let's do a full preview to see how everything looks.
Watch how Supreme went from being a small skate shop to becoming a global brand valued at over $1 billion. They don't just sell clothes, they sell attitude, from their red logo to their limited drops that cause global queues. They made their mark on the industry by turning scarcity and irreverence into their weapons. They're unlikely collaborations, they're ironic campaigns, they're obsessed community. Supreme is first and foremost a cultural symbol, then a garment. It's not about dressing up.
We're going to create a new composition, which we'll call Placeholder. 1080 by 1350 at 30 frames per second. and 10 seconds is plenty. Now, in the Assets folder, we're going to create another folder for the images. And in this folder, we'll save all the images we're going to use in our project. In this case, I'm going to use all these images related to the Supreme brand, and I'm going to bring them directly into the timeline. Now I'm going to count 4 frames forward. 1, 2, 3, and 4. I go to Edit, Split Layer, and I'm going to delete all of these. I'm going to select them all again. Animation, Keyframe Assistant, Sequence Layer. Here in this window, we're not going to touch anything. We click OK, and this has created a sequence of images with a duration of 4 frames each. Now we have to adjust the scale and position. We select them all again, and with Ctrl D, we duplicate them. We have to place these copies we just made after the last one. Press Ctrl D again, place them at the top, and move them to the right. They need to be positioned after the last image. Okay, perfect. Right-click and create a new layer called Matte. Add a rectangle and a fill to it. Here, deactivate this chain to adjust the values separately. Give it the same dimensions as the composition. 1080 by 1350. We set the vertex roundness to 100. Now, we make all these layers alpha matte of this shape. And that's how the rounded corners will appear. If you want, close this composition and return to the main one. Pressing the U key will expand the keyframes of this null. On the last one, move forward slightly. At 2321, mark a keyframe. At this point, move the camera backward. Set the z-axis value to negative 2440. Continue moving forward. And at 29 seconds, zoom in further. Now we're going to set it to minus 3200. We'll smooth all these keyframes with F9. And to give the transition a lot of impact, we're going to move the handles as we did before. We'll set the influence of this one to 100%. Move this one all the way to the left, this one all the way to the right, and this one the same. It should look like this curve.
Supreme is first and foremost a cultural. Supreme is first and foremost a cultural.
Below this keyframe, which is where the transition will be, we're going to cut all these layers, including the ones in the yellow group, and this one here in the blue group as well. With Ctrl-Shift and the D key, we cut them at that point. And this reference layer, if we want, we can delete it. Now we're going to bring in the layer from Scene 8. And this composition we just created from the placeholder, we're going to bring it to the timeline. But first, we'll save it in its folder. all the layers in this scene have to start from this keyframe, which is where the transition will be. We'll change its color and adjust its scale a bit. For these texts, I'm going to duplicate these two layers, for example. And place them up here. I'm going to disable the 3D icon. And these layers, we have to place them right here in the transition. The yellow color. And the animator's keyframes. For now, I'm going to move them to the left, and then we'll adjust the timing. Here, I'm going to write is first and foremost A. We center the anchor point and center the text in view. We'll place this one here with our reference layer. If we want, we can also scale it a bit. In this one, I'm going to write cultural symbol. We center the anchor point and center the text in view. We select these two text layers again and duplicate them. Here I'm going to write then A. And in this other one, garment. I'm going to make this text black, although later, when we finish the camera animation, we'll use the same color for all the texts. With the pen tool, I'm going to create a shape like this. In black, and increase the stroke thickness a little. In the options, we expand the taper and increase the start length. Okay, that should work. I'm going to place this stroke behind the placeholder. And I'll lower the opacity quite a bit. To 15%, for example. The color will also be yellow. And we'll cut the stroke layer here, at this point. Now we can start adjusting the timing of the text. I'm going to leave these layers active, and I'm also going to activate the eye icon for this one in Scene 8.
Supreme is first and foremost a cultural. Supreme is first and foremost a cultural symbol, then a garment.
The first text that needs to appear is this one. So we move these keyframes to the left.
Supreme is first and foremost.
I'm going to apply a fill effect to the reference layer to better see what's happening.
Supreme is first and foremost. Supreme is first and foremost. Supreme is first and foremost a cultural symbol, then a foremost a cultural symbol.
I'm putting this text behind the placeholder.
Supreme is first and foremost a cultural symbol, then a garment. A cultural symbol, then a garment. Symbol. Then a garment. 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 A garment. It's then a garment. It's then a garment. It's then a garment.
That's perfect.
Supreme is first and foremost a cultural symbol, then a garment. It's not a Supreme is first and foremost a cultural symbol, then a garment.
While on the last keyframe, with a right-click, we're going to create a null object. We place it on top of this text layer, select all the yellow ones, and convert them to 3D. Now we parent all of these to the null. We press Ctrl-Home to center the entire scene in view. If we want, we can delete this null.
Community. Supreme.
And the guide layer as well.
Supreme is first and foremost a obsessed community. Supreme is first and foremost a cultural symbol, then a garment. Obsessed community. Supreme is first and foremost a cultural symbol, then a garment.
It looks fantastic there.
Unity. Supreme is first and foremost a cultural symbol, then a garment. Unity. Supreme is first and foremost a cultural symbol, then a garment. It's not about dress.
Now we do the following. With Ctrl-D, we duplicate the null, press U, and delete these. We parent the previous null to the new one. And this animation will start at 28:05. We mark a keyframe and move forward slightly. 1 second later, we'll move the camera down. Here we set it to 4030. We select both, smooth them, and shape the curve a bit. We set this handle to 50, and this one to 75%.
It's not about dress. Garment. It's not about then a garment. It's not
From this 3D model that I have here in the assets, I'm going to create a new composition. Here I'll specify the composition size. We center the anchor point, and with Ctrl-Home, we center it in the viewport. Press R, and we'll add an expression to the Z-axis rotation. With the Alt key pressed, we'll click on the clock and type time times 30, so that this 3D model rotates continuously. And to prevent it from looking like it's floating, we'll add a sort of base. Right-click, select New, then Shape Layer. We'll call this one Base. We add a rectangle and a fill, and activate 2 views for better visibility. This viewport here is in left view. Now we need to convert this shape to 3D. Press R, set the x-axis rotation to -90, and increase the scale significantly. We move this shape down along the y-axis. Notice how this shape interacts with the 3D model. We place it at the base of the feet, roughly around there. Now we expand the geometry options and increase the extrusion a bit, for example, to 7 points. Now we have to link this shape to the pick whip in the 3D model so that it follows the same rotation. We close this composition and save the one that was generated in its folder. We return to the main composition. And in the last keyframe, we bring in scene 9, which we're almost finished with. Well, it's not scene 9, I don't know why, but I have these numbers mixed up. It's scene 10. Okay, this one. We lower the opacity a bit and bring in the composition we just made. We change its color and position it. The layers for this scene will start below this keyframe. If we want, we can deactivate all the yellow layers for now, so we only see this scene. We scale this composition down a bit and position it correctly. Let's duplicate the 2 text layers again. Press Ctrl D, place them up here, change their color, and turn off 3D. These also need to start right at this point. We'll move the animator's keyframes to the left for now. We'll adjust the timing later. Here I'm going to write, "It's not about." We center the anchor point and center it in the viewport. We place this with the reference layer. And if we want, we can make it a little smaller if necessary. I'm going to put a ruler here, and I'm going to leave this text attached to it. Here I'm going to write, "Dressing up." We center the anchor point and center it in the viewport. Although it's not necessary to center it completely, because we're also going to adjust it to this ruler here. If we want, with the pan behind tool, we can adjust the anchor point in this area. If we press the Control key, it will automatically stay attached. Now we adjust the scale. This text is red. We duplicate the 2 text layers again and move them down. We center the anchor point and center it in view. We adjust this text here and leave it black. As in the previous scenes, we now need to adjust the timing, so we listen to the audio.
Garment. It's not about dressing up. It's not about dressing up. It's not about dressing. It's not about dressing up. It's not about dressing up. It's not about dressing up. It's about belonging to a tribe. Belonging to a tribe. It's about belonging to a tribe. It's about belonging to a tribe. The conclusion. About belonging to a tribe. The up. It's about belonging to a tribe.
It's perfect. What I'm seeing is that in this part, I'd like the character to be looking at the camera. So I'm going to go into the composition, and here in the expression, at the very end, I'm going to write plus value. So I can modify this value. I'll leave it more or less around there.
It's not about dressing up. It's about belonging to a tribe. The conclusion. It's about belonging to a tribe. It's not about dressing up. It's about belonging to a tribe.
Being on the last keyframe, on this layer, we're going to create a null. We convert all of these, including the null, to 3D. Now we deselect the null and parent them to it. With Control Home, we center everything again in view. And we can delete the null now.
A garment. It's not.
We can activate these layers if we want. We can also delete the guide layer.
It's not about dressing up. It's about belonging to a tribe. Then a garment. It's not about dressing up. Then a garment. It's not about dressing up. It's about belonging to a tribe.
To make this scene not look so static, we're going to do a small animation at the scale of this composition. We expand it with the S key and mark a keyframe right here at the beginning. In all these text layers, we have to link them to the composition. Around this point, I'm going to increase the scale of this composition a bit. Then, if necessary, we adjust the timing.
It's not about dressing up. It's about belonging to a tribe. The conclusion. It's not about dressing up. It's not about dressing up. It's about belonging to a tribe.
Perfect. We just need to do the last camera movement. We go to second 32, mark a keyframe. And now at 3220, we're going to zoom in a little. We set a value of -2,900. And a little later, at second 37, which is right when the animation is going to end, we continue zooming in. Now we're going to set -2,500 on the Z-axis. We select all three, and with F9, we smooth them. In the same way we did before, we have to give the transition a little more impact here. So we're going to go into the graphics editor. We move this all the way to the right. We also set its influence to 100%. This one too, the influence at 100%, and we move this one all the way to the left, so we get a curve like this.
The conclusion, don't be for everyone, be. The conclusion, don't be.
Right below this keyframe, we're going to cut all the green layers.
The conclusion, don't. The conclusion.
Now we're going to bring in this layer called Scene 9, which is actually Scene 10. We lower its opacity a bit. And this composition we have here of Albert Einstein speaking, we duplicate it with Control D. This one will be called Albert Talking Final.
Cause global cues. They made their mark on the.
We go into the composition, and we're going to replace this file with this other one, which is when Albert appears saying the last line of the reel. With the Alt key pressed, we replace one with the other.
The conclusion, don't be for everyone, be for someone.
Perfect! We return to the main composition, and we're going to bring in this one from the last sentence. We change its color and we position it here. Actually, since this composition has audio, we need to sync it with the main audio. We press the L key twice to display the waveforms. With the backslash key, we can see the timeline in full screen. Here we have the original audio. Press L twice. And now we're going to sync these two audio tracks. To make it easier, I'm going to put this audio layer below this one.
The conclusion. Someone.
Now, we just need to sync it. One more frame. Okay, I think it's perfect like this. Let's check.
The conclusion, don't be for everyone, be for someone. Don't be for everyone, be for someone.
Now we can turn off the audio in this composition.
Conclusion, don't be for everyone, be for someone. Conclusion, don't be for everyone, be for someone.
There it is. This audio layer, if we want, we can put it down here, and if not, that's fine too. You can leave it wherever you want.
Then a garment. It's not about dressing up, it's about belonging to a tribe. The conclusion, don't be for everyone, be for someone.
We have to adjust the scale of this one. More or less around here. Now I'm going to select, for example, these two text layers. With Control D, we duplicate them, and we put them up here in yellow, and we turn off the 3D effect. We're going to remove the parent link from these two. Let's continue. We'll leave them positioned here. We're going to put them below this keyframe, which is right where the transition will be. Press U, and for now, I'll put these animator keyframes here. Look here where the text layers are. Select both of them, and with Control Home, we'll leave them centered here. I'll start with this one, Here I'm going to write conclusion. We centered the anchor point, and we positioned this text more or less around here. I'm going to put a ruler here, right where the edge of the box is, and adjust the text layer. There it is. I'll change the anchor point of this part and make it a little smaller. Here I'm going to write, "Don't be for everyone." We adjust the text to our guide layer. And if we want, we can also move the anchor point to the left and make it a little smaller. With Ctrl+D, we duplicate it, and we place this one down here. Here I'm going to write, "Be for someone." If we want, we can deactivate the guide layer now. Now we would have to readjust the timing.
The conclusion, don't be
Let's start with the word conclusion.
conclusion, don't the conclusion, don't be for everyone. Don't be for everyone, be for someone. Be for everyone, be for someone. Everyone, be for someone. Everyone, be for someone. Everyone, be for someone.
That's great. Above this layer, we're going to place a null object. We select all the layers, including the null object, convert them to 3D. We deselect the null object and parent these 4 layers to it. With Ctrl+Home, we center everything in the viewport.
The conclusion, don't
We have to cut this Albert composition right at that point.
the conclusion, don't be the conclusion. Conclusion. The conclusion, don't be the conclusion, don't
This text layer should be behind the composition.
the conclusion, don't be for every the conclusion, don't be the conclusion, don't be for everyone, be
Well, we've practically finished the camera animation. Let's do a preview to check that everything is working correctly.
Watch how Supreme went from being a small skate shop to becoming a global brand valued at over $1 billion. They don't just sell clothes, they sell attitude, from their red logo to their limited drops that cause global queues. They made their mark on the industry by turning scarcity and irreverence into their weapons. Their unlikely collaborations, their ironic campaigns, their obsessed community. Supreme is first and foremost a cultural symbol, then a garment. It's not about dressing up, it's about belonging to a tribe. The conclusion, don't be for everyone, be for someone. Watch how Supreme went from being a small scale.
I like it. Here, we can also add a small animation to these stars. We expand the rotation tool, and with the Alt key pressed, we click on Rotate Z and type time times 50 so that it rotates continuously.
Drops that cause global queues. They made their mark on. They sell attitude, from their red logo to their limited drops that.
We're going to place this star above the text. Now, with a right click, we'll copy only the expression and paste it onto all the stars. We select this one, and with Ctrl V, we paste it.
That cause global queues.
We paste it onto this one too. Ctrl V, and we paste the expression. We paste it onto this one here as well.
From their red logo to their limited drops that cause global queues. They made their
mark on the
We're also going to apply an effect to these stars called Fastbox Blur. We'll set the blur to, for example, 7. With Ctrl C, we copy the effect, and again, we paste it onto all the stars. Except this one here. This gives the impression that each one is at a different point on the Z-axis. We paste the blur onto this one with Ctrl V. And onto this one as well.
Their ironic campaigns.
Now I'm going to give all the text the same color. I'm going to select this one and give it a dark gray. Like that one. I'll copy this code with Ctrl C. I'll paste the same color onto this text with Ctrl plus V. And well, generally onto all of them. I'm going to select all of these and give them the same color with Ctrl plus V. The one in this scene too. I'll select these two and press Ctrl plus V. I'll also select these here with Ctrl plus V. I'll leave this one red, but I'll give these others the same color. we'd only have these at the end left. And these two here as well, Ctrl+V. There are also a couple of red texts here and there, which I'll also give the same color. For example, this one. I select this code and copy it with Ctrl+C. And I paste it onto this text. And this other one too. And look, this is how our project is turning out. I'm going to put the camera here under the nulls. And I'll delete this reference layer. Another thing I'm going to do is put the shadows on all these elements. I have a tutorial out there in which I explain how to make these shadows without plugins. But this time, I am going to use the Shadow Studio plugin. I'll set the distance to 400 and lower the master opacity to 20. With Ctrl+C, I copy the effect and paste it onto this banknote. Ctrl+V, and also onto the circle. I'll also paste it onto this pile of money, Ctrl+V, but I'll make some adjustments here. You can tweak it until you get a result you like. I'll also change the direction. I like it now. I'm also going to paste the shadows to this piece of clothing. To Albert's composition too. To the phone as well. To this placeholder too. And well, we are almost at the end. We would only have to paste the effect to this composition by Albert.
Watch how Supreme went from being a small skate
If you don't have this plugin, you could also use a drop shadow. It won't be exactly the same, but it can work well. In this case, I'll leave the shadows from this plugin as they are. With a couple of effects that we're going to add now, we'll finish the class. First, I'm going to come here to the background layer and adjust its color a little so it's not so white. Something like that. Now, between these two scenes, we're going to create a little blur. So I'm going to go to this layer, for example. Right-click, select New, then Adjustment Layer, and apply the effect called Fast Box Blur. We'll cut this adjustment layer at this point. And here in the blur radius, we're going to put a value of 15. We'll select a keyframe, and now, 20 frames later, we'll set this value to 0. And this keyframe, if we want, we can soften it. And that's how we get this slight blur between these two scenes, which looks really cool.
Skate shop to becoming a global skate shop.
I cut the layer at this point precisely because I don't want any blur in this scene here. We can apply this blur effect to any other scene. We make a copy of this layer, and for example, we're going to place it between these two scenes. So we move this copy up. But in this scene, I do want blur, so I'm going to extend this layer to the left, press U, position the cursor on this keyframe, and count back 20, 10, 20. We select this keyframe, copy it, and paste it. And cut the adjustment layer there.
From their red logo to their attitude. From their red logo to their attitude. From their red logo.
Perfect. I'm only going to apply it to these two scenes, but if you want, you can apply this blur to any other layer. Here, on the banknote layer, I'm going to apply the effect called tint. I'll leave it as is. Press Ctrl C and paste it to this layer as well. Press Ctrl V. I'm also going to apply the tint effect to this composition. Now let's improve the final look of our reel a little. Right-click, create an adjustment layer, and place it at the very top. It will be called Halftone. To create this effect, I'm going to use a paid plugin, although I'll also show you how to achieve a similar result using After Effects built-in tools. I'm going to use one called BCC Halftone. Here I'm going to choose Round. From Automatic, I'm going to change to Original Image. And from Luminance, I'm going to change it to Alpha. I'm going to disable Preserve Alpha and enable this option. And look at this cool dotted texture we have here. If we increase this value, the spacing between the dots increases. And if we decrease it, the dots are much closer together. I'm going to leave it at 5. I'm also going to use the Deep Glow plugin. But here, I'm going to lower the intensity to the minimum. I'm going to set it to 0.01, so it's a very subtle glow. Again, right-click, New Adjustment Layer. And this one will be for chromatic aberration. For this effect, I'm going to use the Magic Bullet Looks plugin. Here, all I'm going to do is go to the Tools tab, add the chromatic aberration effect, and in this value, we can increase the amount. I'm going to leave it at 1.5. And look at this cool RGB effect. When we're happy with the result, we click Validate. I'm going to set the opacity of this halftone texture layer to 50%. As I said before, we're going to try to create these effects without plugins. Well, without plugins for the halftone texture. For chromatic aberration, we'll use a free plugin. Right-click, New, then Adjustment Layer. I'm not going to rename it or anything because I'm going to delete it later. I'm going to keep these two. Here, we're going to use a free plugin called Quick Chromatic Aberration. And if we increase this value, we can see the distortion. Let's set it to 2, for example, and the result is very similar to what we did before. Again, right-click, create a new black solid, and name it Halftone. We're going to apply an effect called Venetian blinds to this solid. We'll increase the transition to 20%. We'll leave the width of these lines at 5, and for the blur, we can set it to, for example, 1 point. With Ctrl D, we duplicate the effect, and here we'll set the direction to 90 degrees. Now we'll lower the opacity quite a bit, for example, to 30%. And notice that we also get a very cool halftone texture. Okay, I'm going to delete these 2 layers and reactivate these. With Ctrl A, we select all the layers, activate motion blur, and that's it.
Skate shop to becoming a global brand valued at over $1 billion. They don't just sell clothes, they sell attitude, from their red logo to their limited drops that cause global queues. They made their mark on the industry by turning scarcity and irreverence into their weapons. Their unlikely collaborations, their ironic campaign.
Look, if at any point in your animation you see weird things like this, you need to come to Edit, Purge, and clear the cache. In this transition, I noticed another small detail. This text from the previous scene is visible, so we'll cut it out. And with that, our reel is finished and animated, and with a super professional result. I know this has been a very long tutorial, so if you got stuck on any step or there's something you don't understand, write to me in the comments and we'll sort it out. And if you like the tutorial, give it a thumbs up so I know. See you in the next video.
Watch how Supreme went from being a small skate shop to becoming a global brand valued at over $1 billion. They don't just sell clothes, they sell attitude, from their red logo to their limited drops that cause global queues. They made their mark on the industry by turning scarcity and irreverence into their weapons. Their unlikely collaborations, their ironic campaigns, their obsessed community. Supreme is first and foremost a cultural symbol, then a garment. It's not about dressing up, it's about belonging to a tribe. The conclusion, don't be for everyone, be for someone.